Hello, welcome back, and thank you for continuing to follow my channel. If you're new here, welcome. So, wanted to talk about, I'm in the final stages of this metamorphosis as far as my ascension journey. And I know I said before that my journey was like 5 years. And I kind of have to reframe that to say that my physical journey, when I was actually doing the traveling portion of it, was for 5 years. Um, and then it's kind of like after that happens, the universe kind of takes you into this isolation period where you're only having time with the divine to do some deep, serious. It's kind of like you've already done a lot of your shadow work already, but it's kind of like now like scraping the bottom of the barrel of that shadow. So getting down into the crevices, digging out the very deepest, darkest parts and making sure that there's nothing left of that. Okay. Um, so having been kind of in this semi isolation period for it was like 3 months, and then for the last 2 months, like really almost total isolation, and especially these last couple of weeks, and now starting to come out of that. So that's probably why I haven't been doing a lot of videos because I knew it's kind of like when it's time for spirits calling for you to really take um, a period of time away from others. So we've already worked at this point a lot on our kind of deconstructing our ego. And being in this period of time, it's kind of like, again, as I always say, you're leaving one life and going into your second life in this lifetime. And in order to do that, you had to get rid of everything that no longer served you from that first lifetime, including anything that was left over from that ego. So there's kind of like this identity crisis because now it's kind of like, who am I? I've let go of everyone, everything, every situation from my past. So I no longer identify with any of those things. So it's kind of like you're in this, right? Because you're having a rebirth. So you're in this baby stage of a baby doesn't know who they are, right? So you're starting from ground zero as far as, okay, now who am I? Who do I want to become? Anyway, I so as you probably know if you've been watching my channel for a while, I usually go for morning walks. And on Thanksgiving morning, I usually 2, 3 days a week, I do my really long walk. And I've been bumping into this gentleman that has two dogs. And I've been really making it, let's say a habit, but wanting to really remember things, especially as I age, to really make sure that I remember stuff. So doing a lot of things to help me to do that. So he has two dogs. He told me what their names were, and I kind of like put that in my brain to say, okay, I'm going to remember these two dogs' names. Because I would see him like usually every week passing by. He walks the dogs. I would do my walking. And I saw him coming and I saw the dogs, and dogs saw me, the most precious dogs. And they came up to me and I remembered what their names were. And he was like really impressed. He goes, oh my goodness, you remember? Because I hadn't seen him for like 2 weeks. And he's like, oh, you remember what the dogs' names were? And I said, yeah. I said, I worked on Wall Street. in finance, and it's always been really important for me to remember details. So he didn't really say anything. I'm like, oh, happy Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And I left. So as I'm walking back home and I'm saying to myself, why did you need to say anything about working on Wall Street? You know, like that's no longer your identity. And I think when I think about it, people had always looked to me for what I could do for them or who I was because of my work. It was never about who Marilyn truly was, especially in New York. New York is all about, what school you went to, who's your employer, what section of the city do you live in, who do you know, things like that. And realizing that I was still holding on to this identity that really no longer served me, which was a part of my older life, right? I could have just simply said to him that, yeah, I'm getting older, so I'm just trying to make sure I remember things better. And there's kind of this realization that letting go of not only my past, my ego, right? Um, Letting go of this identity of who people identified me as. They never said to, it's Marilyn. It was always, oh, Marilyn who works on Wall Street, or Marilyn who lives in New York, or who's from Manhattan, or anything like that. Or Marilyn that makes a lot of money, that she knows this person or knows that person. It's kind of like want you guys to kind of think about that. And how do people identify you when someone talks about you? Are they saying that so and so is the nicest, gentlest, most graceful, um, whatever it may be, adventurous, things on that thing, rather than identifying a person with their career or their financial status or who they know or where they live, what part of the city, if it's the, more elite part of the city or something like that. How do you identify yourself? And that's a part of you, part of this process of going through the ascension of deconstructing your ego. Okay. So hopefully you understand what I'm trying to explain there. And that, again, I know ascension is kind of thrown around pop culture, getting to that point of, but it's something it's so deep and so real and so, um, it's not something to be taken lightly because you are going through a deconstruction of everything that you once knew of who you were and the reason why you're going to leave a lot of the things behind of what you once identified yourself as. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you again. If you would like a reading, please feel free to reach out to me. There is a link below to book time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.